Hey, my guest today is a guy who, was someone who I was a huge fan of for a long time as a kid, and then became a friend later on in life, which is a very, that's a surreal thing for me, to be close to somebody and find out that a guy that you really admired as a kid is not only a good person, but an extraordinary guy that you consider like family or something. And that's the great Nils Lofgren of the E Street Band. Nils, what's up, buddy?
Hey, Artie, it's great to hear your voice. Good to be on your show. Congratulations. And, yeah, it's nice once in a while when you meet people you thought you liked and that it didn't turn out to be a schmuck, right?
As a comedian, it's a hard thing because, obviously when you meet a hero of yours as a kid, you're afraid that they're going to be an asshole. But
well, for the most part, people have good souls, but it does happen. I remember, of course, another giant fan and friend of yours is my lovely wife Amy, and we both love you. But years ago, I've spent a few times spending quite a bit of time jamming with Bob on stage. And one time in Mesa, I was going to jam with him for a while. And
Dylan, you mean?
No, Bob Dylan.
Bob Dylan, yeah.
And of course, Amy named her son, my stepson Dylan, after Bob Dylan. So I said, "Come on, I'm going to go play with Bob. Let's go say hi." And she would not meet him. She was so terrified that he might let her down, so she just wouldn't do it. It was pretty, but that's a common thing, and most people are fine. But anyway, we love you and glad to call you a friend.
Well, yeah, but the good thing about Dylan is if you meet him, if he says something insulting, you may not understand it. So. But listen, that guy is, for your generation, even Bruce obviously is early songwriting. That is meeting, arguably the best songwriter ever. And it's hard, but as a comic, I do a 180 sometimes with that. There's guys I make fun of in my act, and when I meet them, I don't want them to be nice. I want them to be an asshole, so I'm okay with making fun of them.
Yeah, and then they're nice, and you got to feel shitty about what you did, and deal with it.
Yeah, I don't want everybody in Limp Bizkit.
And hopefully, some of them are cool enough to get it because they're doing the same bits.
Yeah, everybody's the media can be a little dark, but I haven't talked to you since the E Street Band went in the Hall of Fame. Congratulations, buddy.
Yeah, thanks. It was Amy's from West Orange, so to spend some days in New York and Brooklyn, and not only the E Street family, but just so many musicians and engineers, friends, roadies from like the last 48 years on the road. It was a little bittersweet, because one of my dearest friends, of course, Clarence Clemens, we lost, and Danny, and they were both very upset about it, and we all thought it should have happened before we had to start burying each other.
Right.
But it was bittersweet because of that, but we all felt Clarence was there in spirit, and Danny. And it was nice to see my bandmates in particular. This May is 32 years for me in the band.
Wow.
It's fun, It's fun to have a weekend like that. And still the best part is always, Artie, was to get up and actually just shut up and play.
Oh, yeah, that jam at the end is always great. But 32 years, I remember going to a concert in the summer of '85 and saying to my girlfriend, "That's the new guy."
Yeah, and here I am 32 years in. I'm basically the new guy.
Right. Well,
but I got all the homework charts and tapes still in my wardrobe trunk, and we use them, man, because last tour I think we played over 240 different songs. So we're always scrambling for like the next 5 or 6 things Bruce pulls out that it's either gotten away from us or it's 25 years since we played it.
Yeah, the last time I saw you guys, it was a guitar avalanche of talent. I saw you guys in Connecticut, the last show of the last tour. At the Mohegan Sun, and you had Morello from Rage Against the Machine, you and Steven and Bruce. My God, that was just one of the most entertaining guitar shows I've ever seen. Talk about Morello. Were you a guy who knew about him before that tour?
Yeah, no, I was very familiar. Not we've become very good friends. Him and his wife Denise and Amy and I really, hit it off great. And I loved working with Tom. And but I was familiar with Rage Against the Machine and a fan of Tom's guitar playing. And he became the new guy in the band. And originally Steve was filming Lilyhammer, so this was originally to kind of get us through a leg of the tour without even Steven. And, so Tom him and I, it was fun because he was doing the homework and figuring out what to do where. And with Steve gone, I was kind of the guy to defer to, like, why don't you do that part? I'll stay with this one, or I'll take over Steve's part. You do that. And it was fun because he was deep into it. He always did his homework. And great guy, great personality, and great player. And one of my favorite lines of the whole 26-month Wrecking Ball High Hopes thing that we finished, that you saw the end of, it was in the last 4 or 5 months. Every show was an improv, but it got to the point where the set list was completely useless. I mean, it was like I didn't even want to see it because it had nothing to do with. I mean, and like half the time on the way to the stage, Bruce would change the opening of the songs, opening of the night, and everyone would be scrambling to tell the text and what guitar to use. But one night we were doing one of those crazy improv shows with the signs in the audience, and he was calling out old Eastery stuff.
That's amazing.
Played.
Who does that? That's unbelievable. That part of the show.
Nobody does that. And it's funny because, I mean, you do kind of a rough live improv thing in these comedy clubs, so you're like a live performer. But now, for the last 20 years, like all the lights are digital, everything's programmed, and we keep having to tell our poor lighting guys, like, hey, if there's a song you never heard and you hear an upright bass, maybe you want to put a light on Gary Talon playing the bass.
Right.
He spent the last 6 minutes in the dark, you guys. Use your ears, but people aren't used to that. But anyway, the line from Tom was, he came up to me one of these crazy improv nights. It was about 2.5 hours into the show. And he said, hey, Nils, this is the first song I recognize in 1 hour and 17 minutes. And he's standing between me and Bruce. He's standing right next to him. So it takes a certain kind of guy to hang with that and roll with it and not just look like the deer in the headlights taking over.
You know what most bands call 2 hours and 17 minutes into the show? They call it the show. It's the end of the show.
They call it a long show.
They call it a long show. I mean, my God. It was just unbelievably impressive, and again, you talk about me changing the set list as a comedian. I do it all the time, but it's just me. I'm in my head knowing what I'm going to change it to. You guys, I try to watch you guys really intently when Springsteen yells out a song and how you guys have to adjust. You're talking about a song that might have 40 years in between the song you thought you were going to play.
And a lot of times, the signs in the audience, there's songs some of us might have played in teen clubs in the 60s, but we never played it as a band. And you hear something you like on the radio, there's probably 5,000 songs we can all hum along to, but if someone says, here's a guitar, play it.
Right.
It's a different thing. But, it's all fun. I mean, way early on I learned, because they have such a great history, and I think this River tour we're on is kind of the height of the Bruce and Steve history as producers and kind of co-lieutenants and just blood brothers in the whole thing. But, often Steve would come up to Bruce in the dark, and they'd be laughing, and I look over, and when they're laughing, I know we're doing the next thing on the list, and I learned the hard way. If they're not laughing and they're having a serious talk, they're changing the song, and I realize the two of them don't tell anybody. And I'm like, excuse me, there's 19 friggin' people up here. So I learned the hard way because Bruce is in such a zone. I knew to get over there, and the second they broke, Bruce would head for his water. He'd buy Max's drum riser, and I'd get right in his way, and he'd literally bump into me. He'd come out of it for a second and see me, and I'd go, what are we doing?
Right.
And he'd look at me, and he'd realize, oh, shit, nobody knows what I just said. But he could never remember that because he's such a zone, and he'd get right in my face, say something, and then I become Paul Revere, and I run over. There's Five Horns, Tom Morello, Susie Tyrell, and I got to jump on the riser to tell Charlie, and that's before my poor guitar tech finds out what guitar I want. So it was a fun, crazy thing, and I love it. And it's been a little weird, Artie, because for the first 2 shows, they've been great. They were like 3 hours, 20 minutes.
Right.
But we did the double album, and so everyone was looking around suspicious because we did 20 songs in a row.
Oh, God.
That was on the list, and that's part of the theme of this. And I imagine once we get that done, the last hour and a half will start getting into more and more improv. But we're starting featuring that record, which is gorgeous, of course. And we play most of those songs, but to play them as a whole set again, we only did it once here in Madison Square Garden. And it's a beautiful thing. I remember it was like 1980. I was living in L.A. for 25 years, and I think it was 1980. I was at the Sunset Marquee working on a record, and I saw Bruce one morning. We'd been friends since 1970. I saw him play. We did an audition night together at the Fillmore West for Bill Graham, trying to get an opening act gig. But anyway, he said, hey, Nils, I just finished this double album called The River. I'm going over to listen to the final mixes. You want to come along? So I rode over, he put me in a little room, just him and me, and he played the whole double album. And I'm sitting there. It's like 10:30 in the morning. I was so blown away by the thing, and I still remember thinking that although they've all made great records, it was the first album I heard by Bruce and E Street where I thought they got that sizzle and electricity that you see in the live room into the grooves of the record. And
wow.
now that we're playing it again, it still holds true, and it's really a joy to be out. I mean, it came out of the blue, man. I had 4 months of work booked this year, so that's no fun canceling work.
Right, yeah.
I feel terrible about my fans, and God bless them all if they're listening. I'm going to make them up as best I can. But I've been in the band 32 years. And, Bruce was not planning on doing this. He had a change of heart, and I'm grateful because it's always, every chapter with that bunch is a wonderful thing.
Yeah, you got to go. I mean, the Sunset Marquee is such a classic L.A. place. I mean, you could be there at any given moment, and you might see Nils Lofgren and Springsteen talking about a double album he just did. I saw the greatest thing. I was in a whiskey bar at the Sunset Marquee.
Right.
And John Waits was in the bar. And he doesn't know me, obviously, but we were standing next to each other because it's a small place. We saw Julian Lennon trying to pick up a girl underneath a picture of John Lennon. Okay, and it was just odd. And Waits looked at me and he noticed I was kind of fascinated by that. And he said the funniest fucking thing. He hits me on my shoulder and goes, "At what point do you think he points to the picture?" I mean, that's a ripcord at the end. If you can't get laid, you go, "Well, listen, I'm gonna just go with the final Hail Mary pass here. That's my father."
Yeah, man, what an amazing thing, and just I was blessed to get out to L.A. in '68 and hook up with Neil Young.
Yeah, you were part of that whole Laurel Canyon thing, and you wrote the riff to Southern Man, or helped write it, right?
Yeah, well, it was weird. We were doing they were. I mean, he asked me to play piano, which I wasn't a professional piano player. And I pointed it out, but I was only 18, and Neil said, "Look, man, you've played classical accordion for 10 years. You won contests. We saw the dorky picture with your trophy. So, we think you can handle it." But I practiced all the time, and they'd take lunch breaks. It was at Neil's house in the Topanga Hills. So Ralphie Molina and I are playing the groove, and it's like the verse. It's halftime. Bum, bum, da, ba, bum,
right,
bum,
right,
da,
wow.
Real down and slow. And we're jamming on that for a half hour, and I feel like changing it up. So, I'm coming from the polka school, pa, roll out the barrel kind of thing. So I start double timing the left hand. Ralphie picks up the backbeat, whap, whap, and I come up with that, bum, bum, ba-dum, bum, ba-bum, ba-dum,
wow.
bum, bum. They come back from lunch, and Neil and David say, "What the hell's that?" And I said, "Well, that's a Southern Man with a polka beat." And they said, "That's great, man. Let's do that in the solo and at the end." So next time you check it out. I know you know it, but
wow.
It just grooves like that. And it was nice that the old square accordion days and all those studies led to a cool arrangement change on such a beautiful record.
So let me get this straight, Nils, because what you just said is so fascinating to me, because I don't have any musical talent, as you know.
You do, man. We've had a little jams together.
Yeah, it took you 4 hours.
And the thing, Artie, the thing that you've recognized when we play together is not having any talent makes it easier to play the blues.
Yeah, you got something.
So, we've had a couple good blues jams, and don't sell yourself short there.
Well, that's the nicest thing anyone's ever said. But so the song Southern Man existed, like the lyrics existed, and that part in the beginning that you hear going into it, that didn't, and that's what he used. That's what you wrote.
Well, I wrote the piano part. I mean,
right.
The chords were there, the melody was there.
But that's really an iconic part of it. I mean, that's what.
But it was halftime. It was like bum bum wah, bum bum Southern Man.
Yeah.
It's very down, and I just came up with a double time riff on the piano that he loved, and then that became the solo in the end. And actually, I started the first riff out of the gate in the song. I played it once, and then I went to the halftime down thing. So it just came a signature riff. And it's interesting, last October I went to England and did a 33-day run, my acoustic duo show. And, of course, Amy came, and she was selling the merchandise and designed the T-shirts. And she had me make a live album, which I ought to plug, Nils Lofgren Live in the UK.
Yeah, I was just going to get to that. That's amazing. Seeing you live, I'm so glad it's live. Seeing you live is a special thing, man.
Yeah, no, I love it, man, and I've always had a ball with it. But literally just before I went to the UK near Halloween, Neil called and invited me to his bridge school benefits in San Francisco, and I said, look, man, I did the first 3. In fact, I did one with Bruce, his first acoustic show ever. Wow. But this is like 29 years later, and I said, look, I can make the first night, but I can't cancel a gig. Would you let me do the first night? He said, sure, come on down. So I went out and played a few songs. He came and sang with me on one, and then at the end of the night, he's got this Promise of the Real band, Willie Nelson's kids, who are wonderful, and they're buddies. And he had the exact Gold Rush upright, we call it, the same piano I played 45 years ago on stage, and he said, why don't you just come out and play our set with us? So I got to do Only Love Can Break Your Heart, Southern Man, play his whole show. And sitting there at this old piano, this upright that I played when I was 18 on that record, you know, it's funny, I laughed at the dressing room. I said, man, Spooky never felt so kind.
Right,
and,
wow.
He hit Luke Nelson in the arm and said, write that down, we're going to steal it.
Well, yeah.
But it was a wonderful way to, kick off a tour, to sit down at that piano after 45 years and play a set with Neil.
Now, when you see Neil, do you tell him that you jam with me the blues?
Yeah, man, of course.
Neil Young is, listen, to be a guy who worked with first Neil Young as a kid, you're 18. You know, what makes you go to L.A., Nils, at 18? That's young, man. I didn't get out there in my mid-20s. And, you know, being from the East Coast, I couldn't believe how different the world was. I called my mother from the top of Mulholland Drive, and right. I grew up 2 miles from Newark Airport, I grew up from. I said, Ma, I can't believe I'm on the same planet as where I went to high school. You know, it's unbelievable. And it changes your life. To be out there in 68, you're 18 and 68, that's the time to hit for rock. And you're in Laurel Canyon in that scene. What made you go there?
Well, let me tell you, I was 17 and 68, and what happened was when I was 16, just before my senior year, you know, I went to see bands all the time. So I go to see The Who, the original Who, Constitution Hall. We run over for Jimi Hendrix Experience Late Show at the Ambassador Theater. And that night, watching Jimmy after The Who, I was possessed literally with because, you know, in the mid-'60s, we loved the Beatles and Stones and Hendrix, but nobody did that for a living in middle America.
Well, yeah.
That was not a job. And, you know, nobody dropped out of school unless you'd knocked up your girlfriend and you were pumping gas and your story was on the way. So basically, after that night, I saw those guys and I said, I was kind of possessed with the idea, like, man, I got to try that. And it was very uncomfortable. And by 3 weeks into my senior year, I ran away, put a note under my pillow, apologizing to my folks, went to Greenwich Village, started sneaking into record companies asking for a job. So at 17, what happened was I didn't know anything about the business. I just had a love of music. I was writing songs. So I put Grin together. We started playing and became a big band in D.C. with original songs. We auditioned in New York and struck out. We got turned down by a few people. And so we were 3 weeks from leaving for L.A. We had a plan to go there with $100 each, rent a house, work our asses off, and make it work, looking for a deal. I snuck in on Neil at the cellar door, and same thing. Hey, I'm a kid. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I'm a professional musician. We're headed out to L.A. Any advice? He said, do you have songs? Yep. Sing me one. He handed me his guitar. I sang a song. He said, I like it. Sing another. So I sang him half the first Grin record. He loved it. He gave me a cheeseburger and Coke. I spent 2 days hanging out with him, and he said, look me up when you get there. And true to his word, he took us under his wing, and as David Briggs, his producer, moved me into his house, and we were making our way with Grin.
Unreal.
I wound up a year later at 18 doing After the Gold Rush, and I did the first Crazy Horse album, which was the great Danny Whitten's album without Neil. Jack Nitschke joined, and that led to Tonight's the Night, which was kind of a wake album for Danny dying and Bruce Berry. And you know, so it just started a beautiful friendship. In '83, we did the Trans album and tour. In the mid-'90s, we did the MTV Unplugged. And then just a few months ago, on my way to my own tour, I got the call to come and, you know, play on that great old upright and do a set with him in San Francisco. So I'm very blessed at a young age. And it was, people said, oh, he had a lot of nerve, you know, a lot of guts. I said, no, it wasn't. I was scared shitless. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. So I went and asked people, please help me. I don't know shit. And that's really why I kept sneaking backstage asking for advice, and it led to a lot of cool things.
Well, it was worth it. You know, you could look back and say it was worth it. I had this thing of, I was talking to a therapist, and I remember sleeping on the floor in Penn Station because I did a stand-up set and it went late. I was 23 years old, and I had to sleep on the floor at Penn Station. And I remember saying out loud, I had to wait 4 hours for the next train to Jersey. And I said out loud, I hope this is worth it. And, I was thinking the other day, as Danny said to me, Nils is going to come on tomorrow. I said, I know Nils Lofgren. I'm friends with Nils Lofgren. Springsteen called me. I was on the Stern Show for 8 years. I said, yeah, I wish I could go back and talk to that kid sleeping on the floor at Penn Station and say, dude, it's going to be worth it.
It's funny. A dear friend of mine, we were out dinner the other night, and he said, the question was, what advice would you give your younger self?
Right.
And he was like, yeah, don't worry, it's going to be okay, I never felt like anything was going to be okay back then, but I just knew I had to keep moving forward. Another good story, Artie, I was out in Topanga as a kid. Originally, we got some dump in East Normandy Avenue under the freeway, and, $300 a month and playing anywhere we can. And I hitchhiked out every day to Topanga to hang out with David Briggs and Neil Young and just start figuring out what we were going to do. David was going to help Grin. And one day I make it to Topanga. Sometimes it was a 5-hour adventure starting early in the morning to hitchhike because that's a hell of a trip. And the car pulls over. I hop in. And this is like probably, early '69. It's Glenn Frey.
Well, yeah, okay. I was going to get to that.
And he said, hey, Nils, I'm Glenn, and it was like a community of musicians. And he drove me up there, and he was the sweetest, nicest guy. Fast forward to the Tonight's the Night tour. We started with 2 weeks in England, and our opening act was the Eagles.
Right.
And it's one of these really dark records Neil made. His company was against it, but it was a beautiful chapter, and we were all stuck on this funky bus, the Eagles and us, and there were these massive poker games. Glenn was an amazing poker player, and him and Briggs went at it. There's 5 or 6 guys. I just watched, and I was in the back of the bus with Ralphie having a joint and a tequila or something. And one time David lost $6,000 to Glenn Frey in a poker game. And all hell broke loose. And it was just, every time I've seen the Eagles since, of course, they're one of the greatest bands. I'll buy the, Irving Azoff, says, yeah, sure, you want a ticket? It's $380, no problem. So I'm just poking fun at Irving. Look, every time I've seen him, Glenn has been the same sweet, kind soul that picked me up hitchhiking in '69. And God bless him. It's an awful loss, and hearts out to his family.
What a story, man. Listen, you mentioned before about Federici and Clarence gone. And I was talking to my buddies we got together Christmas time. Me and my friends I went to high school with, and I'm pushing 50 now. I'm 48, and I'm going. 2 of the E Street Band are dead. Bowie and Glenn Frey in the same week, basically.
I know Bowie was. I only met him once at the Power Station. Yeah. Same thing. Just couldn't have been nicer and sweeter. Just stopped what he was doing, gave me some time, and then before I overstayed my welcome, I said thank you and headed back to work. But it's just awful, and that's kind of the age we're at now. In my last album, on this new album, I got a song. Well, I wrote a song. My last album, Old School, I wrote honestly about the pros and cons of being, getting ready to turn 60.
Right.
And, of course, the big plus column is being around, obviously. But still, I try to be honestly and some humor about the, yin and yang of getting older. And I wrote the song Miss You Ray about Ray Charles, and the metaphor for loss is when they mount up, the grief can blind you to what's left. And on my 60th birthday, I picked up Amy, flew to Florida, buried Clarence. I was miserable. It was a terrible loss. And I wanted to just go home in this dump hotel, pack my bags, and get out of there. And Amy said, no, it's your birthday. I said, I'm not interested in my birthday. And she took us, like 30 of us, band, crew. He had a net of friends all over the globe, to one of those 5.5-hour dinners where you laugh, you cry, you tell stories, and it was very healing and commiserative. So ever since that night, it kind of reminded me about my own song I'd forgotten, and I've been singing Miss You See about Clarence and our E Street family, and we got that on this new live UK CD.
Yeah, well, you did an album and you had a song. This is what I think about too. When I hear another guy in classic rock died, I say to myself, that's another guy. Keith Richards somehow outlived. You had a song about Keith Richards. You wrote on one of your. It's one of my favorite songs you did. And
yeah,
you
thanks.
You really feel really strongly about him, right?
Yeah, no. Look, I was a classical accordion player, and it was the Beatles and the Stones that spearheaded what we call the British invasion. And it was really through them, Artie, that through the Beatles and the Stones mainly, that I discovered Sax Volt, Motown, Muddy Waters, Howlin' Wolf, Jerry Lee, Little Richard. I discovered all that in my own country through the Stones and the Beatles, and God bless them. I mean, I was on the Tonight's the Night tour in '73 with Neil Young, and everyone was talking about, because it's Neil Young, so all the musicians swarm around, talk about Keith. He's not doing well, and I'm still young and naive. I'm like 22 or something, and I'm like, well, he just made Exile on Main Street. How sick can you be? But But it gave me the idea if I had this dark piece of music and I wrote this song, Keith Don't Go, and it was like kind of a thank you note for all his fans, but also a serious plea like, look, man, you know, selfishly and collectively, the gifts you're sharing are amazing, and for us and yourself, please stick around and take care of yourselves. And it stood the test of time, and obviously, thank God, so is Keith. And, you know, I've gotten to see him a lot. He's always been very sweet and kind, and it's just nice, you know, kind of like those guys are the Muddy Waters and Howlin' Wolves now to the younger generation, and I'm glad they're still around.
You played that on my show, the Keith song, the old DirecTV show. I was I was proud of that show, man. That was one of the best shows we did.
That was a great show, man.
You stayed for 3 hours. I mean, it was great. But you know, Willie. The night afterwards, we had Willie Nelson's kids on the show, and their band played. And I said, guys, you know, I got to say that's a great song, and whether it was great or not, one thing's for sure: one of you guys has great weed on you. But Billy Wilson, by the way, coming out with an old brand of weed. Talk about going corporate as a hippie. He's got a corporation selling weed.
Yeah, man, those kids are great. I mean, to play you know, it's funny. I worked on a couple songs, and Neil was like, well, maybe I'll bring you out halfway through, and we'll play some from after the Gold Rush. And by the time the show hit, he said, look, man, why don't you just come out and play the whole night? And I said, thank you. And I did. I rented an accordion because I know that fits in here and there. And it was just like old times. And, man, we go way back to, like, you know, 67, 68, and very grateful that he's been such a mentor and friend, and he's still a stand-up, incredible talent that's still sharing it with all of us, which is beautiful. Yeah.
Well, again, I got to plug. I got to plug the CD, man. Hearing you live, I saw. Okay, I'll tell the fans this. I saw Nils live at BB King's in Times Square in New York City. It holds about 400 people. I've done stand-up there before. It's a good room to get a reaction from people because it's sort of intimate. Right. And my God, you got 4 standing ovations from just guitar solos. I mean, you weren't even singing. You just played the guitar like for 5 straight minutes, and what you were doing on the guitar garnered 4 standing ovations. I mean, that's to have a live album and done in the UK 2015 Face the Music Live. Just that word "live" is worth getting, man. It's really special stuff, buddy.
Yeah, thanks, Artie. You know, I got 20 years ago, I kind of parted ways with the bureaucracy of the music business. They're not interested in some old, you know, blues player that never had a hit anyway. And thanks to technology, I got a website, nilsofgren.com. I did a 10-disc Face the Music 46-year retrospective that's there with a 138-page book. People can get it, too. And this live thing is where I'm at my best. I've been doing these shows with Greg Varlotta, my buddy I play with for 10 years. Right. It was really Amy's idea in January. She said, look, these are the best shows I've seen you do. You got to record it. So it's her brainchild, and she designed the packaging. And this last trip, you know, when people said, can I get the show that I just saw, thanks to Amy, it was right there. But, you know, live's where I thrive, man. It's what I love to do, and I'm starting my 48th year now. So to have a run with E Street and then got some gigs of my own I'll get back to in the spring, I got to be very grateful, and especially when you wind up burying so many friends and so many of your peers are not making it.
Yeah, you got to start thinking about your own mortality, which is, you know, again, what I'd love to do for you, Nils, too, is if you give Danny, when you go back on tour for the solo shows, if you could send Danny, you know, and we'll keep plugging the album, your dates, we'll throw them up on my Twitter, too, and just try. That's really the way to promote stuff, I know from
Yeah, no, Amy's got me up to, like, she's running my Twitter with me, and she got me up to 54,000 now. I started at 10, so she's been helping me too. But yeah, I'll get Danny all the info, and I'd love some help letting people know. I'll be around the East and Midwest and standard club stuff, and I'd love the help. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. And one last question before I let you go. And again, you don't have to answer this. You can say, I don't want to answer it if it's awkward. I'd rather not say. You give a one-word answer, whatever you want to do. You know, when Bruce gave the induction speech to put in the E Street Band, you know, right. I thought it was really appropriate. And again, like Springsteen, he's just always, you know, when he gives a speech like that, he just always says the appropriate stuff. He never goes too long. He never goes too short. It's just the right amount of humor, the right amount of sentimentality, the right amount of this, that. He spends just the right amount of time on David Sancious and everybody. And at one point, though, he did something that was really honest and kind of telling. He talked about the night before he was going in. Right. Little Steve went over to his house and said, you know, hey, man, you really should fight for us to get in. And Bruce was a little apprehensive. He said, you know, some of the old wounds might still be there. As a fan, you know, it's clear when there was a break, you know, after Born in the USA, the Tunnel of Love, blah, blah, blah. They weren't on tour. and I said to myself as a fan, what could they? What is that about? Like you think like there were never wounds. When he said wounds, is there any like insight you could give me on it? Is it money? Is it touring? Is it fame? Is it what was it? What happened?
Well, I mean, that's more of a question Steve or Bruce would have to answer. I'm coming in. I mean, look, I would go to the shows, say hello, see Bruce at a hotel in L.A. We go for drives sometimes, but we weren't talking about East Street Band business. We were talking about music and our lives and family and just, I mean, it's funny. We went for a drive once and listened to a record he'd just written and produced with Gary U.S. Bonds. It was beautiful. And then we went up on a sand dune, and he even talks about filing it away. I was telling him how even when I was 18, I remember going to work on the After the Gold Rush record thinking to myself, man, it's so much fun to not be the boss today, just to be in a great band. And I'm singing harmonies and I'm playing acoustic rhythm. I'm playing piano. I'm not always playing the lead guitar. And he filed that away. And he said decades later, when he asked me to take a shot at jamming with the band when Steve decided he had to go solo. But, that I've had my own history with my brothers, my grin, and all that stuff I could talk to you intimately and personally about. But inevitably, it's not really, it's rarely ever money. It's always like, hey, we were kids. Steve is a great player. He's a great writer. And he had these like 2 or 3 albums built up over decades, and he never made one. And it turns into bile inside you. You got to get it out. And it was just bad timing, and that's just my guess. It had a lot to do with that, where Steve got to a point in the early 80s, like, man, I just got to do my own shit for a minute. And it was just awful timing with the release of this beautiful record they made in their history, and out of the blue, I'd been up to Bruce's house and jammed and went around Jersey, and I was feeling a little down in the early 80s. I couldn't get a record deal, and people were calling me a dinosaur, and I'd call him once in a while. I said, man, I know you're down. Come on up. We spent a weekend playing around, listening to the Born USA album. Now, 4 months later, I said, thanks. He's just a great friend and person to do that for a fellow musician that's struggling a bit. 4 months later, he calls, says, hey, why don't you come on back up, man? We'll do some jam, and maybe I'll get the band together. Now, he's very low-key, but I thought to myself, get the band together? What the hell would he get the E Street Band together to jam with me? We just go bar hopping.
Right.
That's what we do.
Right.
So I knew, without asking, because I don't like to be pushy, I knew that Steve was going solo, and this was kind of an audition. So I got some bootleg tapes. A good buddy, Tom Beach, lent them to me. I wrote charts for, Badlands, Thunder Road, Promised Land, stuff they got to play. I didn't want to ask Gary Talent to scream chords in my ear.
Right.
And I went up there, and we jammed for 2 days. Didn't talk a lot. We just jammed. Then I'd go stay at Bruce's. He was a bachelor. I moved. I was at his home. We'd talk about what being in the band, being in the band would entail, and this and that. And I said, look, man, love your band. If I'm the right guy, just please let me know as soon as you can, because I had a record I was making. I was starting to get a deal back for this Flip album. And he said, yeah, I totally get it, in probably 5 or 6 days. By the second day, we walk outside. I go to give him a hug goodbye, and he'd been inside talking to the other guys, unbeknownst to me. And he said, look, Nils, I've talked to all the guys. Feels good to us. We got an opening night in a month. You want to join the E Street Band?
Wow.
And I'm like, I'm so happy, and I'm like, did you say we got a month? So, it took about 20 shows to get my sea legs. But, these beautiful things, if you just kind of keep your heart and mind open. And it was really Andy Newmark, a great drummer friend of mine, in those early 80s when I was feeling down. And, I was talking to him a lot, and he was like, why don't you just reach out to some of the other music friends? Why don't you call Bruce? He actually said it to me. And, I didn't call Bruce with the idea of, because I didn't know Steve was leaving the band. That shocked me because of their history. But that was when he said, come on up, let's hang out for a weekend. And it just kind of one step led to the other, and I got that call. So I've been very blessed to be in so many great bands, which, again, I really love. I'm in a bar jamming, you need me to sing the song, pick it, and lead the band. I'm happy to do it. I'm good at it, and I'm comfortable with it. You need me to be in a great band, if it's Ringo Starr or Neil Young or Bruce Springsteen, man, I'm in heaven. And I love doing the other things and being part of a team instead of leading the team.
Yeah, no, I mean, absolutely. Look, first of all, you just gave an answer that put a lot of insight into it, and you did it in a cool way. So thank you for that. First of all, I know you're a really cool, classy guy, Nils. So I will refrain from asking you. You're at Bruce Springsteen's house in in the early 80s in New Jersey. He's a bachelor. And I won't ask you about the pussy parade that must have been going on there.
Yeah, you know, unfortunately, there was zero.
Okay, all right.
I think even a guy. Well, look, you know, you're like a performer, so you know if you get caught off guard, all your like pro flags go up. Like, oh shit, I'm walking out in 5 minutes. What the hell am I going to do? And it was kind of like that. It was kind of Bruce was like, oh shit, you know, I lost my right-hand man, and I got an opening night in a frigging month.
Oh, yeah, it's working.
What the hell are we going to... And it's funny, we wake up in the morning, we have like friggin' fruit and cereal, and we go jog 5 miles.
That might be the most disappointing thing I've ever heard.
Yeah, I know. I hate to break it to you now. And you know, I hold up in an upstairs room, and I band all music day and night. I literally play the boom box and study. He used to come up and drag me out. I said, look, man, you've been up here for 3 days. You got to get the hell out of this room. Turn the tape off. Let's go eat or let's go out. And, you know, look, I'm sure, you know, Bruce had no shortage of companionship when he wanted it. But that month leading up to opening night was such a hellacious challenge, not just for me, man, because these guys, this was traumatic for them. I remember being the second day of rehearsal, right? You know, we get into the room, we're just having a drink before we go out to rehearsal, and like everyone's sitting at this table, and at the end of the table there's an empty chair, and that was Steven's chair. Wow. And everyone's looking at me, and I'm like, well, look, man, if not me, who else? I love to play. I love your band. I've been buying tickets to see you since the early 70s.
Sure.
So let's check it out, because you're going to have somebody, and Steve said he's off doing a solo thing, so let me take a shot at it. And, you know, 32 years later, it's worked out beautifully.
Talk about a good choice, man. All right, well, I'll let it go there. I'm just saying that a friend of mine's older brother saw Bruce at a bar in Manasquan, New Jersey in 1982 called Leggett's. Okay, that's after Born to Run. That's after The River. All I'm saying is I've gotten laid at Leggett's. No, listen. I am glad you came, and it was really poignant seeing you guys go into the Hall of Fame and how much you've meant to each other, and to see you all together that night, and then to see, you know, Clarence's wife. God, what a funny moment when Clarence's wife said, you know, they didn't call him the big man for nothing.
Oh my God!
She got a huge laugh, and to see Federici's, I think it was his son, right? Of course.
Yeah, his son Jason.
Yeah, I mean, what you know, and Bruce is there, and it's you guys are literally like a family, and I feel part of it because of the words you guys sing and the way you do it and the passion. I just appreciate it, and I will continue to talk about the CD UK 2015 Face the Music Live. Nils Lofgren. I mean, you're not going to hear a better live performer. And see the E Street Band. You're on tour. You're in New York right now. You got snowed out like everybody did, and you got more shows in this area coming up.
Yeah, we got more shows. We're doing we're only like a few into 24 here in the Northeast and Midwest. We finish out in LA, but come see us, Artie. And hey, man, you are part of our family. You know that. We've been at many bars after shows together and at shows. And I know Bruce is a big fan of yours and a friend too, and we all love you. So I'm thrilled you're doing well. And me and Amy send our best and love. And hey, give us a shout, man. Come see us play, and even more important, let's find some time to sit down and have a meal together and catch up.
Well, you're going to see me for sure. Best to Amy. She's such an angel. You know, and again, I won't get too dramatic, but you guys definitely had a part at one point in my life saving my life, Nils, and I
well, you know, music. One of my older records about 5 years ago, the title was "Sacred Weapon," and music is my sacred weapon, and I realize it's one for billions of people, and yourself included, and thank God for that, right?
Yeah, that for sure, but also you personally, you and Amy personally, what you did.
Thank you,
Artie. You're solid people, and
yeah, we love you, and we feel the same way back. So let's stay in touch and get together, and congrats on your show, man. It's always good to catch up.
Take care of yourself, Nils. I'll be talking to you real soon, I promise. Hopefully we get
all
some
right,
time.
Love you, Artie. Take care of yourself, man.
Best to Amy. Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye.
Man, the great Nils Lofgren, it's a guy who can tell a story, too. I mean, think about the memory. He remembers in detail stuff that happened in 68. He helped write the riff to Southern Man. Put Southern Man on right now. Yeah, I mean, come on. That blows me away, you know. And I realized Glenn Frey was a friend. You could tell that about Glenn Frey. As much of an asshole as he comes out on that documentary about money and stuff, you can't deny something, and that's this. That a lot of guys have the same story Nils had, that he was just a really sweet guy and generous and said, come hang, you need to crash somewhere, I'm with you. And they were all young at once, you know, and they're billionaire basically corporate heads now, and it does change. And it was pretty insightful what he said about he did it in a real class way, about the rift that might have been between Bruce and Steven. Steven, he was going to be the rock star at one point. And he is. Steven's a fucking rock star. From The Sopranos on down. But, he needed to get that out of his system. He needed to go on tour and be the lead guy for a while. And Bruce might have felt betrayed by that and, felt abandoned, so on and so forth. But they're back together, and it's great. So, big history there. Danny, the great Nils Lofgren, right? Thanks for that, buddy. Danny Filato surprised me with that last night. That Nils was coming up.
He's a great guy.
Yeah, he's unbelievable.
Is the president coming?
As military helicopters fly above us, and well, maybe that's for the big Patrice O'Neill band tonight at City Center.
Hey everyone, it's Dan. Dan with a cold. I apologize. I'm not shocked that I have a cold. I have not had a cold since 1988. Artie's never seen me sick. But he keeps the deck door open, the windows open, and the air conditioner on 24/7, 365 days a year. I have got it down to a science to not waste a second in the morning when I get up. I put my running shoes on. I bolt to the coffee machine. I start it. I run to the front door. I grab the paper, run back to the coffee machine. Even if it's not full, I grab the cup. I run back into my little cocoon, and I slam the door shut. It is so cold in this condo at 6:30 in the morning. If you've ever gotten a tour of the meat locker at Smith & Walensky, that's what it's like. You could age beef in this apartment. That's how cold it is. And no, I didn't meet Rick Steves in the meat locker at Smith & Walensky. Go ahead, Flippin', play your little clips. I'll even leave you a space. Go ahead, James. Play a clip.
There are many, many pictures of me taking it up the ass from Rick Steves.
Okay, now play the one with me and the dog.
Look who it is!
That's the other one. That's the last one. That's brood.
Oh, my... You crazy!
Where's Art?
No, I'm going to get you back. I swear I'm going to get you back one day. Anyway, thank you to the great Nils Lofgren. Please go to his website, nilslofgren.com. His solo work is amazing. His work with Bruce Springsteen is amazing. He has been a huge fan and friend to Artie for a long time, and quite frankly to me also. And I downloaded his CD of the Tour of Europe, him playing live. It's amazing. I put it on Artie's phone. I even put it on Selma's phone. She loves it.
You made me happy.
Oh, you know what? Hold on. I never get to do this. Hold on. That is good wine. What is that? That is Oberon from Folio Wines, I think. It's an amazing bottle of wine. I think it's under $20. It's under $20 in Chicago. It's about the same price here. But Artie doesn't drink, so I don't drink in front of Artie. But it's just me and Selma, and we're gonna sit back, relax, watch a little Bill O'Reilly, talk about the wall. I don't think so. So anyway, that's you know what? I'm gonna have one more sip. Are you chewing gum? And by the way, that is not to piss off the people who say that Artie shouldn't eat on the air. I just never get to have a glass of wine. But thank you to Nils. Thank you to his lovely wife, Amy. We've had so much fun over the years with them. Speaking of thank yous, I've got more people from the Twitter, so I don't get in trouble. I want to thank Steve. Artie always thanks Steve, but I'm going to thank Steve. Dave. Rod from Bayside. Evan. Nicole, Ben, and that's not Ben from Clifton, because when I thanked Ben from Clifton the last time, I wanted to thank this Ben, because I didn't think I had to thank Ben from Clifton, because, Ben from Clifton and I are friends, but then Ben from Clifton called me and said, I wasn't complaining that I wasn't getting mentioned, so this is the other Ben, Chris O'Hearn, Daryl Elber, Meredith, Merck785, Brad, did I say Andrew? I think I said Michael Caine the last time, Corey, and the Fantasy Nuts guy sends out funny stuff every once in a while. So thank you to all you guys. If I left anyone out, just please, I don't mean to. Stop sending me mean direct messages. Hey, I've been a subscriber since day one. I'm sorry. I'll mention you the next time. Okay, so those are my thank yous. I thanked Nils. I told you how cold it is in here most of the time. And now I want to tell you about the podcast today. We had this amazing interview with Nils, and Allie Breen and Gino and Ryan were on their way. Actually, Allie and Gino were at the Path station, and Artie got a call from the Patrice O'Neill people saying, we want you here for the red carpet. Now, he didn't know he was supposed to be on the red carpet. He didn't, who would have thought they wanted him at the red carpet? Nothing screams red carpet like Artie Lang. Trust me. But so Artie had to race out of here. So we're going to have a shorter podcast today. However, for the last couple of weeks, because a lot of people wanted to hear Artie's full set from Access TV. That's Mark Cuban's network. The name of the show is Gotham Comedy Live. Artie was kind of the host of the 100th anniversary TV show. And somebody from Mark Cuban's office called and said it was one of the highest rated things ever on Access TV. So they are going to rerun it. But we don't have Access TV in Hoboken. And I know a lot of people complain that they didn't get to see the show. So we're going to air Artie's part on Gotham Comedy Live, the 100th episode right now. It starts off with Gilbert Gottfried introducing Artie, and then Artie doing his entire set, and then all the comedians come on in the end. So sorry it's a short podcast today. I apologize for the short podcast. I apologize if I missed anyone. This is the apology show. I apologize for my cold. I apologize for the podcast being short. I apologize if I missed anyone on the thank you list. And so please forgive me. And now we will play Gilbert introducing Artie. Talk to you guys tomorrow. We'll have a full show tomorrow. Thanks a lot. Thanks for subscribing. Talk to you later. Bye.
Now, this next man has made a great accomplishment recently. He hasn't dropped dead. And I think that's big. And if you're like me, when you see this next man, you'll say like everyone did, how can a guy in the final stages of AIDS be so fucking fat? Ladies and gentlemen, my pal Artie Lang.
Give it up for John Stamos. You know you're not in good shape when Gilbert Gottfried saying you're not in good shape. The fuck? Looks like Walter Matthau took a shit. For you people who are under 30, Google Walter Matthau. You'll laugh your ass off. Well, it's good to be here at wherever we are. Wherever I am. No, listen, I'm out of breath already. Piece of advice: never teach a spin class before you do stand-up comedy. I teach the 915 down at the Crunch on Lafayette there. I'm just in it for the pussy. I go over to the juice bar, and you used to need good cocaine to get a hot chick in the old days. Now you just need a gluten-free muffin and a NutriBullet, and it's way cheaper than blow, man. It's great. I hated coke. I'm the only guy who ever got fat on cocaine. I went to rehab for coke. A black guy came up to me and said, "What are you pouring that shit on, cheeseburgers?" You're the fattest cokehead I ever seen. That's how black guys talk to my rehab. I went to rehab in 1888. I'll tell you, this gluten-free shit, the pussies have won, man. You know, Giant Stadium has a gluten-free hot dog. You can have a gluten-free, if gluten-free hot dogs were available in 1978, and I asked my father for one, he would still be punching me in the face. Have some fucking gluten. We've lost every war since World War II. Gluten, man, gluten. What the fuck? It's such an effeminate generation. You young people, you're very nice people, but you're so effeminate. I mean, your Clint Eastwood is Neil Patrick Harris. You know what my Clint Eastwood was? Clint Eastwood. Sporting events suck. I remember the coolest things used to happen at sporting events. Now everybody's so fucking polite. I went to a hockey game, Rangers-Islanders game, 1989, man, where you could just fucking say anything. Like, you know, I was in the third row with my cousin Frankie. Kid in the first row was wearing glasses, so we figured he was gay. Oh, nice glasses. Good luck marrying a guy. But he did the coolest, he was a nerd, he was like an autograph nerd, but he did the coolest fucking thing I've ever seen a guy, and the nerds used to be cool back then. A guy, it's at the Garden, so a guy on the Rangers checks a guy on the Islanders into the glass, midway through the second period. Checks the guy, now the guy on the Islanders swooshed into the glass, and he's like that for it seems like an eternity. The nerdy kid gets up, and he has the presence of mind to take the cap off the Sharpie magic marker that he had for autographs. And he did the coolest fucking thing I've ever seen. He slowly walked up to the glass, and he drew a dick into the mouth of the guy. Me and my cousin were like, is that Elvis Presley? And in no other sport would the guy on the home team participate in this behavior. But the guy on the the guy on the Rangers saw the guy on the Islanders was getting away from the dick, and he kept pushing his face back. And like it was a power play. The Rangers were down by a goal. The guy abandoned the game. You're like, fuck you. People paid to see you fuck up. You can suck a fake dick. So the kid had time, and he made it like a black cock. Yeah, we got elaborate. First time I ever saw a black cock in a hockey game. But not the last. Generation, guy, you people are just, you're nice people again, but God, what pussies. I mean, everything's, Bruce Jenner has a pussy. Yeah, see how quiet you get? Oh, fuck you, right? How else would you put that? You want me to call him Caitlyn Jenner? It's Bruce fucking Jenner. He has a pussy. I'm from Newark. I'm not sophisticated. Sorry, I didn't go to Vassar. The fuck is going on, man? He gets a courage award for becoming a hot chick. That doesn't take courage. You know what takes courage? Me becoming a chick. That was... Guy's 62 years old. He claims he's straight. He gets a pussy out of nowhere. And there's no coincidence that the day after he got that pussy, he got into a big car accident, man. Talk about a distraction. My God. He was probably playing with his pussy, right? There's not a male cop that would fucking arrest you. Mr. Jenner, you just killed 8 people. I just got a new vagina. Oh, you're free to go, yeah? I was a heroin addict. Fuck heroin shit. I would ask, here's how much of a scumbag I am. I would ask my doctor to keep my old dick to fuck my new pussy with. Talk about addiction. Where's Artie? We haven't seen him in 18 days. He's in a motel going like... I blame it on those fucking Kardashians, man. A guy moves in that house, he goes fucking crazy. Honestly, Lamar Odom, man, he's an NBA player. NBA player. They're used to hot chicks like young Carmen Electras. Khloe Kardashian is not up to snuff, man. I'm sorry. You know how many times I've been mistaken for Khloe Kardashian? And I'm not proud of it. I'm not proud of it, but I've let women over the years think I'm other celebrities just to get some kind of sex. I wish I had a dime for every time a chick left New York City thinking she blew Newman from Seinfeld. Well, I'll leave you with this. I get a lot of hot young chicks because I'm famous for being a loser, you know. And they all want to change you. They all want to change you. All these hot chicks, Artie, I can change you. Artie, let me be the one to change you. I can change you. I go, fine, deal. And the same thing always happens. We move into my apartment. Eventually, I shit my pants and she finds out she really has to change me. I'm Artie Lang. Thank you for coming in.
Stick around after the break for Orlando Jones, Jackie the Joke Man Martling, Mario Cantone, Gilbert Gottfried, and Artie Lang when they all take the stage.
Let's hear it for Gilbert's hair dye. Mario Cantone.
Welcome back. This was a fantastic evening. Gilbert Gottfried,
Yay.
Artie Lang,
Yay.
Jackie Marling,
Yay.
Orlando Jones. What could be better than this? What could be better? Say something.
I'm just saying, Gilbert Gottfried, your hair dye, your hair is jet black. You're 82. How do you... How long did that take to apply?
I have a few words. A couple's in the living room. He said, "You're dry tonight." She said, "You're licking the rug."